Hello everyone, today we will be learning about Docker, the number one cause of imposter syndrome within developers. Turns out Docker is not a very difficult thing to learn, so let's jump right into it, how it works, and then we will be creating a Flask Docker container and then deploying it onto our local machine. The first thing we will do is download Docker. To do this, head over to their website, which is www.docker.com. We're going to go into Products and Docker Desktop. The Docker website will automatically realize your operating system and will provide you with the downloads. It's available for Mac, Linux, and Windows. Personally, Mac and Linux work much better with Docker because they're Unix-based, but Windows is also a viable option. Now let's learn how Docker actually works. Okay, so first of all, how does Docker work? Oftentimes when you clone an app from GitHub or use an old app that you haven't opened up in a while, you will realize that these apps have different hardware configurations. For example, the operating system might be different, or the the drivers might be different. For example, let's suppose if I cloned an app from GitHub and it requires Python 3.6. My system, however, has Python 3.9, which at the time is the latest version. As a result, this creates a hardware configuration error where the app will crash. Now, the only solution to this before using Docker is to create a virtual machine that will have that specific requirement. Now, there's a much better solution to this where we create a Docker container, and this Docker container where we have the developer specify the Python configuration or the version. We can also specify other things such as a library module version or even the operating system. And this will run on its very own container, which will have all the specifications downloaded. As a result, the app can run freely despite having a different hardware configuration than the actual system itself. Now we will be learning how to actually create a Docker container. Okay, so now let's actually start our coding. So the first thing I did was I just created a very simple dummy REST API using Flask. There's not really much to explain here. It just returns hello there in a JSON format. If you guys are running a website or an API or anything web related, make sure to keep the host different to what your localhost address is. So I wrote mine as 0.0.0.0. This is because sometimes this is what happens. What happens is that when you guys actually run the app itself in a Docker container, it creates a bunch of confusion with the localhost, which causes the app to crash. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is actually get all of our requirements. So by getting our requirements, we can run our Docker container properly. So we're going to type pip freeze. Alright, and it shows us all of these, dependencies. Okay, we take all these dependencies, copy them over, and paste them into our requirements.txt. Alright, the next thing we're going to do now is create a file called Dockerfile. So just make sure that the D is capital, and if you're using VS Code, you should be able to see an icon next to it. So the first thing we're going to do is specify the language that we're going to use. So we're going to use Python. So we're going to go from Python. All right. The next thing we're going to do is talk about our working directory, which is the main directory of our file. So we're going to type in work directory. All right. And our work directory is going to be the Docker app. The next thing we're going to do is copy over all of the requirements.txt, and we're going to copy them over as the requirements.txt itself. So we're going to go copy requirements.txt, and then add a space and type in requirements.txt. All right. The next thing we're going to do is run the requirements.txt and execute every single possible dependency that we have in the file. So to do this, we're going to type in run pip3 install -r, and we're going to type in the file. So it's requirements.txt. Okay. The next thing we're going to do now is copy over all the files. To do this, we're going to go copy, and we're going to put in 2 periods and make sure there's a space between them. This tells the Docker compiler to take the files and copy over everything that's there. All right, the next thing we're going to want to do is expose the port. We're going to expose the port 5000. So the reason why I'm picking 5000 is just because that's what Flask usually uses, but you can pick whatever you guys want. And then we're going to run the command. So to run, we're going to just write cmd. So as you can see this executable. So that's what's going to be executable. So we're going to use Python 3. So I'm going to use Python 3. And then we're going to type in the app itself. So /app.py. So if I were to wait, why is that? Yeah, okay. So if I were to translate this into what it actually means, it would just be take Python 3 and go to /app.py. All right. Now we're going to run this app. All right. So to run the app, we're going to want to, So to run the app, we're going to first of all go ahead and build our container. So to do this, we're going to go sudo docker build -t, or build -t, and we're going to pick a name for our container. So I'm just going to name this API container because that seems pretty nice. API container. All right. Make sure to have a period afterwards. So this lets the this lets the terminal know that the command is ended. We're going to type in our password. If you don't have a password, okay. So now it's just building. So if you guys see any errors, just comment them down below and I'll try to help you out. And as you can see, it writes the image to a SHA-256, so that's the address. The reason why I use SHA-256 is because that's very good for encryption. All right, the next thing we're going to do is now run our Docker container. All right, so we're going to go sudo docker run -d -p. All right, and then we're going to specify the port, which is port 5000. And since I'm using the port 5000 here, I'm just going to write that once more. All right, and then I'm going to write the name of the container. So we wrote our container as API container. API container. All right. Yeah, so it just takes the brand new SHA-256 address. All right. The next thing it's going to do is go sudo docker logs. Or wait, let's actually first view our Docker container itself. So to do this, you can do this in two ways. You can just go to the Docker GUI. All right, you can see it's just running over here. Or what you can do is just go sudo docker ps-a. What's that? Yeah. So as you can see, it's just running right over here. It has a container ID. And it also has a name. All right, so we're going to just copy over the container ID, and then we're going to go sudo docker logs and paste the container ID. So now, as you can see, since there's no errors, that means that this is properly running. Now I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to put it here. So yeah, as you can see, now we've actually been able to deploy our Docker container. If you guys want to delete the container itself, you can just go back here and hit stop. Yeah, and you can just delete it. All right, so that's how to use Docker. So that's the basic tutorial as to how to use Docker properly. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments.